What's up, everybody? My name is Dennis the Menace.
And I'm Iris the Vision, and if you're tuning in, then you got a thirst to quench on
The Juice. And tonight, we have a very special guest in the building. He's been working behind the scenes, doing a lot of big things too, and also bettering people's lives. Welcome, Dunnu.
Cheers. A little welcome toast. Absolutely. And honestly, this stuff is really good.
I know. Too good. So tell us about yourself and your experience in the music industry.
Okay, so music industry, honestly, like I would say it just ties so far back. Like the first thing that I really got involved in was honestly writing poetry. So like I've been writing poetry since I could probably write. And that like led into eventually when I was in middle school, my brother introduced me to Tupac and then just like rap music. And so like growing up being Indian and like from the South Asian culture, I just like watched a lot of Bollywood films and Tollywood films and just it was mostly like melodic music, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of our music is very melodic. So I was very used to like melody based structures. So I loved like more of your pop or alternative music, but I didn't really go out of my way because like we were like in our cultures like they don't want you to see the world. They're like super sheltered or they try sheltering us. So when middle school came along, when my brother introduced me to rap, that was like the first thing I got to experience as an individual, right? Where I was like, where I made the decision on, I'm going to go consume this on my own, right? And so then I fell in love with it, and that was the first time I heard, because although we have melodic like structures, the bass lines are very intricate. You know, we have a lot of different interesting drums, tablas, and things like that. And so they're very like crazy, wild, rhythmic patterns. But that was the first time I ever heard somebody do that with their voice, like in rap. It's like, and it's like, you know, I was like, whoa, I've never heard this vocally of like, it was a percussive vocalization. So middle school, I started battle rapping, and then fast forward to about high school, like I would freestyle at a little whatever parties, some stupid shit, you know, stuff like that.
Right.
And
Did you win?
absolutely, every time. Nah, not every time. But yeah, definitely, you know, that competitive drive, being an athlete or whatever, was always like, oh, why didn't I say this? And it's like, it's kind of hard to think of something instantly. And then it led into, absolutely. And then it led into, I remember this specific moment, and I love telling this story, but my best friend, Cole, and he's an artist I work with as well, Cozy. And we're at his trailer parks, you know, they had the studio set up, and they were working on some music, and then I was murmuring some stuff to myself, and he's like, yo, that's kind of hard, bro, like lay that down on the mic. And I'm like, nah, I'm good, man, like y'all do you, I don't want to waste your time, you know. And I found myself just like trying to disagree with him, and then he's like, no, man, he starts yelling at me, like just got intense. And he's like, get your ass on the mic. I was like, dude, what I'm like, bro, it's not that serious, bro, like just calm down. He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, I think you're right. I don't understand what's going on right now. And then he out of nowhere asked me, he's like, who's your favorite artist? And I was like, what? Like, how is this transitioning so quick? I was like, you know, you're my best friend. Like, you know who he's like, just answer the question, man. And I was like, is Pac, like, why, bro? He's like, now, if Pac never made music, you'd have never been influenced. So by you not putting your music out there, you're holding back one of those kids that could be inspired by that. So get your fucking ass on the mic. And that's just kind of where my music career started, where I was like finally taking it serious.
That's inspiration right there. Just
face.
That's intense.
Yeah, like he literally was like, I mean, he literally grabbed me. He's like, get your, and I was like, dude, what is going on? Like, so yeah, that was that. Like, it was pretty funny, but.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, were you born in Fort Worth? Or are you like raised in Fort Worth? Or
yeah, so like a suburb, Northwestern Hills, but like obviously as far as like our big city, you know, is Fort Worth. So like everywhere I went, I would go to a lot of places like the Lancaster area, Stop Six, friends that would be over in like the Barry area and stuff like that, North Side. And so like the way I was at least growing up is like I'd never stay at home. So like when I say grew up, like sure I slept at home at night, but like throughout any other point in time, I'm out and about and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously, as I'm sure all of us know as, like, DFW residents, like, the culture is very different in Fort Worth compared to Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
sure.
Beautiful cultures in their own rights, but just very different. And so, yeah, I mean, I was born in Philly. So I was born in Philly, came here at a young age, went to Euless when Euless was actually still ghetto. Thankfully, got cleaned up, and then, you know, came over here for, like elementary school and stuff like that.
Dope.
Yeah.
I used to work at that Best Buy by the Northeast Mall. That was
Oh,
like
yeah.
my first like real job in Best Buy Mobile doing sales and stuff.
Hey man, the Best Buy days were the best days. I remember going in there and just being able to play like the games and everything. Now it's like they just got it on display. They won't let you do nothing.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
show you stuff.
People jacking that
Those
shit.
were the
running out
days.
You know what I mean? Like I miss that stuff.
They had like a full Samsung set up in there. I have a Samsung.
Literally, I mean, they'd have like these like fitness machines and stuff, like demos and everything. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like,
Now
Yo,
everyone
it's
just
changed.
does everything online and looks up reviews.
I was
stuff.
more of a Radio Shack kind of guy.
Oh, Radio
yes.
Shack.
Hey, look, hold on, y'all. If you remember those RC cars,
Oh yeah, bro.
oh
Yeah.
my
I would go
god.
in and be like,
Man, I remember seeing those little box sets where they had like the main car, and then like you see like
Oh, yeah.
the image of like all the little tools that
yeah,
you could
yeah,
add
yeah.
to them,
Oh,
and,
my
and the
God, I
bodies
forgot
and the
about that
shells.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
me and your brother used to like go in and be like, oh, we want this one, we want
Yeah. Like I'm over here sketching it at school or something like that, trying to tell my dad, like trying to convince him, like, hey, look, this is what I'm gonna do. He's like, yeah, with what? I'm not getting it. I'm like, man, come on.
like, too expensive.
Yeah, I'm like, stop playing with me.
Yeah.
Dang, that's nostalgic as fuck.
And I know you said also too you're an athlete. Did you play like sports like growing up or?
Yeah. So predominantly a basketball player. I ran track, cross country, football. Later in life, hilariously enough, I'll get to that in a second. But predominantly basketball was my sport. So I was playing basketball, and I was like in high school, I was like slowly starting to get scouted, probably because I was an Indian and they're trying to fill some statistics. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, but I was decent. I was never gonna go like D1 or anything, but like I was gonna be able to go to like some D2 schools and then just get like a full ride or whatever. And I always used to tell all the shorties, but I'd be like, they'd be like, oh, why don't you feel this way or that way? I'm like, you know what? I'm like, hey, is it okay if you? I was like, are you okay with always being number 2? And they're like, what? Like, why would I be number 2? I'm like, basketball is my first love.
Oh my
my
gosh.
little sappy self. But yeah, so then just I ended up getting injured, and then that all went downhill, and that's actually what ties into a lot of what is going on in my life now, like the stuff I'm working on, because I went through a super depressive phase in high school, because that was all I knew. That was like a big factor of my identity. And like from a scholarly perspective, like I was always good at school, but I just didn't like it because I was able to finesse the system always. Because it's like, when like you can tell how a teacher will test, or they'll like they build their quizzes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I would always like be able to technically get away by getting very high grades, but I'm like
That's
maybe
how
not
I am
retaining
too.
the material because I just figured out the teacher, right, or the system. And so I would always like I enjoyed breaking systems as a kid. Or breaking stuff, like I'd always like
finessing it.
deconstructing things. Like
Yeah.
I gotta be at the house and I'd like take apart remotes. My parents are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I was just curious. And then I put it back together. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And,
That's funny.
so like to me that was more of my intrigue, and then I realized like, there's reasons for it, but like the American school system isn't built for that, right?
Nope.
And so it's like it's not built for a student or an
To
individual.
question, never question it.
Exactly. It's very
Ever.
linear, right? It's a very
Yeah.
linear experience. And I mean, it makes sense, like, to play devil's advocate, like, it makes sense because, like, from a socio-political standpoint, not to get too deep with it, but, like, I'm a big advocate for this just because, like, now being an entrepreneur and being in this space for some time, like, I understand the social side of it when people get frustrated about that, but I'm like, hey, like, you run a country.
Yeah.
You run a country. Like, how well are
But
you
people
running?
don't
How well are
understand
you
that.
running your own life right now? First off, you run a country. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. It's hard enough just making it happen for your own self, let alone like as you have a child now, and as we have family members and parents and cousins and things like that. Like that's already like tough enough. Like life itself is already tough. Run a country, bro. Run a little community collective. You know what I mean? Like we're
business.
talking like this is run it like
Yeah.
this is a whole nother like
Right.
tier
It's
to
like
things. So
leveling
yeah,
up,
it's tough. It's tough to assume that like there's easy solutions for these things because there's so many kids and you're trying to so much information to so many kids. And that's tough, man. So
True.
One of the things I had read was like our education system started on the Puritan system. And so whenever they started the schools, they basically raised kids to either be an employee or a soldier. So
Yeah.
that's why kids are taught the way they are, because they just want you to listen and not have to question anything.
Fuck. What's his name? Not Tucker Carlson, but the other Carlson. The one that was like, he's a comedian.
I think I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name right now.
I can't either. But dude, he was definitely like on that shit early on. Like he recently like passed away not too long ago, I guess, a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Huh.
He's an old guy, but I've been seeing a bunch of videos of him just like doing his like stand up, but he's just like definitely like ripping in on the country and how like we are and like going in on that specific topic. But just
maybe if we just allowed more free thinking in schools and more like figure out what you want to do instead of this is what you're gonna do, I think that would help a lot of kids like figure themselves out instead of being so lost in a young age.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of lost kids out there. Like I was one of them. Like I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like I'm just doing what I'm told. And
well, I mean, you're not really supposed to. Like I think that's the narrative. Like that's the issue with the narrative is like, hey, like what do you want to do? And I'm like, I'm a child. Like
but they're always asking. Like they make that a big deal. Like what do you want to be when you grow up? And
I
it's
think
like,
even like
I have no idea.
Going to college and like you're like, all right, what do you want to do? Like some people don't even know what they like. I thought I knew what I wanted to do going out of high school, and like it completely changed after that. Like no, that's not what I want to do.
And our parents know what they want us to do, so they're gonna put that on us too.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's a lot to uncover.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
But we won't do that this podcast because this is about you today.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a part of it for sure, though. You know, I think I mean, tying it back, like for me, like, you know, why I like economics so much, right? And why I think economics is so important. I wish that was like mandatory. Like, if I'm being honest, like I wish that was a mandatory class from elementary school. And I think like I have very, in my opinion, intriguing ways on how that could be taught to elementary students. Because some people might be like, economics, that's a big topic.
About money.
Yeah, that's a big. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people think economics is money, but when you really think about it, who uses money?
All of us.
Well, who is us?
The people, the government.
And what are people? What are we?
Human beings.
We're human beings. Besides humans, who uses money?
I'd say the government.
Well, I'm saying besides human beings, that species, what uses money? Nothing. So what really is the study of economics?
Of humans.
Exactly. Yeah. It's human behavioral science. And so people think that it's about money, and that happened in the 80s. You had a couple of these professors and these big economists that transitioned the narrative that was focused on the money statistics because math is easier to study because it's predictable. 2 + 2 ain't going to change. Yeah. So it's far easier to be predictable and to have a good model that makes sense. But to study humans, oh, good luck. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's like kind of like, you know, segueing into like for us, like at Nerve is like a big factor is when people are talking about like what's the real goal or what's the real desire. Like at least our theory is, you know, I don't think it's happiness. I really don't, because happiness isn't sustainable. You know, like, you know, happiness is not the goal, because if you're desiring to be happy at all times, that's not how life works.
You don't get happiness if you're always chasing it. You have to be okay with your surroundings and just like look at the trees and just be happy with the green color and the way the wind flows. Like,
yeah. And then also be happy per se, but like be okay with not being okay. You know, because there's a lot of times whenever you're just going to be like, I'm having a bad time right now. You know what I mean? Or like, man, this person pissed me off. It's like, cool, then be pissed. Yeah. Like, that's fine. That's
live your emotions out.
Yeah, like that's totally okay. And so part of that to us is, if that's totally okay, then what's the real goal is to be totally human, right? Like that's the real goal. And to be a total human, in my perspective at least, is really allowing all of it to be okay, right? Because happiness is a piece, but like I want the whole cake. You know what I mean?
The anger, the frustration, the sadness, all that stuff.
Absolutely. And I think that's like the biggest part about it is like, we have these misconceptions because part of like tying back to some of those things is like we're sold certain belief systems.
You don't see any commercials like showing anybody that's not happy unless it's a joke or something. Like everything we see is all about be happy this way, be happy that way. But tell us more about Nerve.
Yeah. I guess like going slightly backwards, but like when we're talking about the music side of things, right? Like Nerve ties in ironically to my music, because how it all really started was when that happened with the basketball thing and I wasn't able to play sports and I went through a depressive factor. For me as a child, like I'd always say this to my mom, and like my mom and I are like, she's like my best friend. So like I have like a type of relationship with her where it's like a homegirl, where if an outside person saw me talking to her, as I've had a lot of my friends and people say this to me before, they're like, dang, dude, like, you talk to your mom like that? And I'm like, you know what I mean? And they're like, you talk to your mom like that? I'm like, yeah. But like, and they're like, but she's yelling at you back. I'm like, yeah, well, we're both titting and tatting at one another. But the one thing I'd always tell her when I was a kid was, I had an identity crisis, right? Because I never fit in. So I wasn't the conventional Indian. I wasn't the Indian they wanted me to be. They meaning America. Like, you know, it was like, oh, so you're good at sports? I was like, so what you think? Like, we're not good at sports or something? Mm-hmm. Or like, oh, so you're charismatic? Oh, so what you think? I'm supposed to be quiet and I'm not going to have a personality? And, you know, whatever. The only thing that fit the narrative was I was smart. You know, like, I made good grades and I was good at the traditional things like mathematics or sciences and what have yous. And like, my narrative ever since I was young, because I'm a pretty prideful person, but like, was like, I want to change the narrative on what it means to be Indian is how it started. And so the one thing I would always like argue with my mom about as a child was, by day I'm expected to be an American, and by night you tell me to come home and act like an Indian. I'm like, what the fuck is that about? You know? And so I apologize, that's the passion talking, but and so like, for me, it's a very confusing thing because I go to school and then I'm being told like, oh, you're not American, dude, you're an Indian, you're this, and that. And I'm like, so I don't fit in? And then I go home and they're like, you're not like us, like a real Indian, you're more of an Americanized Indian or whatever, so you're not Indian enough. And so I was like, yeah, so like, I ain't got a tribe then, huh? And so like, I always said ever since I was young, I was like, I always told my mom, because I'd argue about the concept of family, and I was like, I believe family is not blood ties, I believe family is like, I think it's principles, you know what I mean? I think families are principles. And so to me, I would joke with her. It wasn't a joke, but I would joke with her. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna build the world's most powerful family, and we're not gonna be blood related." And that was my goal, because I'm like, in my opinion, I'm like, we're all one of the same. It's like, not to get too deep into science, because I love science, but it's like, yo, we're all one damn thing, man. So at some point in time, some civilizations moved to a different, geographic location, so it was a little colder. So you got white people, and then you had different civilizations that were at the heart of like humanity, Africa, and then so you had black people, and then you had some civilizations that moved slightly off the equator, but not too far. So you got brown people, and so you know what I mean. I'm like, y'all, come on, bro, like wake the fuck up, stop talking crazy to me. For real. And it's wild, but like, I'm going off topic. But what was your question?
What Nerve is about.
Yeah, and so what happened with Nerve was I went through that identity crisis in high school, almost committed suicide twice. And so music saved my life, because one of the times I popped a whole bottle of pills. I'm sitting there in my room, and what are you doing? You're trying to kill yourself, right? Like, you're just waiting. And so I'm sitting there, and like 40 minutes goes by, about the time when, you know, a lot of pills or, you know, these types of medicines will metabolize in your system. And I start feeling slight, like, euphoria or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting anxious, right? And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be like foaming from the mouth, and my parents are gonna find me. Like, I'm like, oh, is this the right thing to do, right? And I'm like, no, it's my life. I get to choose, you know, this is, I wanna do what I wanna do. And then I'm like, ugh, and I freaked out. And so I grabbed my rhyme book. And so I spazzed out. I opened it up, and I wrote like 3 pages of just a whole record. I just wrote a song at the time, but like I wrote a whole song. And I remember the last thing, I put a dot on the paper, and I remember I sighed, and I was like, I feel so alive. And I was like, wait, what? I feel so alive. And then it just snapped to me, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And I ran to the bathroom, threw up, you know, whatever have you. And so how that ties into is that was my personal journey. And so then as time went on through high school, I lost some very close friends, 3 particularly, because Nerve was actually not Nerve originally. And so it was called the F&J Foundation, and that stood for Ford, Neat, and Jet. And so like 3 different times, 3 different years we had. 2018, I had one of my homies, Duke Ford, he passed away. And then 2020, I had my buddy Noah Neat, childhood friend, he passed away. And then 2021 February, I had my boy Louis Jet pass away. And so it was all their last names. And so that was the whole initiative. And based on what the focus was with me dealing with substance abuse and some other individuals and mental health issues, our original focus actually with F&J Foundation was the opioid crisis. And at that time in 2018 or 19, it was on average that 136 people died every single day in America. And then the statistics shifted in 21 to about 267. And the number has only continued to increase, obviously. And then as we progressed with the narrative of the organization, as I was canvassing and I was getting ready to prepare to like, you know, launch the company, all the legal stuff and everything like that, I'm obviously speaking to some leaders here in DFW and like going to different founders and like getting to understand the nonprofit space and whatnot, because I had never been a nonprofit founder. I come from a for-profit background. And so I was like talking with these people and I was like, hey, like, what do you see as things that we should be working on? And then with my original founding team, we decided on some of the other pillars, which are, you know, our youth, our veterans, homelessness, domestic violence, substance abuse, obviously, and then suicide prevention. So we have 6 pillars. And then after we realized that, in our opinion, I'm big on like mathematics. So like, y'all know much about 80-20 principle? And so,
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and so the 80-20 principle, without getting too deep into it, is like it's a law. It's the way that you can mathematically prove it in nature. And so when we looked at everything, we realized that you could argue that these 6 pillars are 20% of the most dense problems in society, in any country, anywhere globally. So that in theory, if you talk about shift or change and making massive sustainable change, if you were to target this 20% of the demographic of our species, you could get 80% of results for the species as a whole. You see what I'm saying? Because you have to understand, like, by solving the problems within these 6 pillars, these are the parameters and the variables that make them the problem in the first place. You're solving for that. It's not the people you're solving for, it's those variables.
Right.
So you solve those variables, now expand that into the species as whole. Then you update. We become a fucking super intelligent species after that. If you really think about it logically.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, but people don't see it that way.
Nah, they see the media and people going crazy.
Those are some really good concepts, though. Like, I feel like even
sure.
myself, I've dealt with a few of those things. Like you said, whenever you had issues, you would like put in your headphones and listen to music, and that's the same thing I would do. Like, I've dealt with like domestic violence with my mom. I've seen that, like her going through that.
Yeah.
Homelessness. Like at some point, I went and lived in my car too, but that was just because I wanted to get away from those kinds of things. Like I've had some really bad thoughts before too, but that's amazing what y'all are doing, because I feel like there's a lot of people that live that and they just hide it. Like they just don't even want to speak on it. So if you make that like more known, then people feel more comfortable opening up
or talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's I don't think it's a choice. I think it's mandatory. And I think you know, I think it's one of those things where it's like, if you really look at it, like Elon Musk is autistic, right?
Yeah.
And so he's on the spectrum. And Nikola Tesla was considered to have been on the spectrum as well. And so
Einstein too, I think.
Einstein
right?
as well, I believe.
Almost insane.
Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Michelangelo, the greats, right? And so, and respectfully speaking, like these are also, I'm only bringing up certain names on the spectrum of like, let's be honest, traditionally Caucasian people, but there's a whole wide range of other individuals that have accomplished phenomenal things, of course. And why do I only know those names myself is, guess what? That's how we were taught.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I can admit that, right? And that's where part of that self-discovery journey is, of like going out of your own way, because that's
doing
stuff
your
you got to go do your own research, right? And so, but yeah, so I think it's ironic that, you know, I was watching this video the other day and it was very powerful. And this speaker, he's like a business coach or something. He was like, hey, look, like a lot of times, like it's easy to talk, but it's different to, you know, to do the work. And he's like, a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to build this thing and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and what have yous. And he's like, but do you know what it took for those people to do it? Elon Musk works 120 hours every week. Every week. He's the CEO of 3 companies. What you going to do?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to blah, 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 and
Takes
this and that.
time.
But it's like 120 hours a week, and that man has like 6-7 children. Guess what? Sadly enough, they're not going to get the same attention that you and I probably got.
Right.
You know? But that's the sacrifice he's willing to take to it. Not saying it's right or wrong. That's for you to decide. But that's what he's doing. For whatever reason, he thinks it's right.
I see that even like in a small spectrum as like, for instance, like my job where I work at, my boss, probably one of the best bosses I've ever worked for, because like she don't even have to be there. Like we can run the store on our own, but she decided, like today even, like she decided to come in and print shirts, because we've been so busy like with emails and people coming in, so we had to catch up on that end. But she's in there just like printing our shit.
Dang,
and
that
she
is a good
cares.
boss.
Yeah, she cares. Like she does not have to be there. Like she's been like, she's getting ready to retire, but like even that, like she's getting ready to retire, she can just be checked out already. When it says she wants us to get more money, she's like caring and she's being a leader. Like not just being like, hey, go do this, go do that.
Yeah.
Which a lot of bosses are like that.
Yeah,
I've had a fucking manager tell me like I'm the manager. Like, I've worked up to become a manager
now.
Yeah, I've worked up to become a manager, so I get to tell you to do what to do. I'm like,
that's happened with me too.
Yeah,
recently.
like, even though he's a cool guy, but at the same time, I'm like, bro, come on, like.
There's a difference between a boss and a leader, and a leader is always gonna like try and teach you the right things and teach you why they do things, and the boss is just gonna say, now you do this. This is your new task because I don't have to do it anymore.
And I feel like that's just how our country's ran. It's just like.
Yeah. Do we have bosses as politicians, or do we have leaders?
I don't know.
Woo! Ding, 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 ding. Next round. Halftime. No, that's crazy. But it's like, I'm like with serious topics. I'm like, as you can tell, that was the most I was smiling so far, because that's those are the types of things that light me up. Like, I love people like that. That's the stuff that is amazing, because I got this one bar in this one record, and I said, soldier in general, I'm in the field, and I'm like, I think in order to be a general, you got to be a soldier first. That's not my thought. That's exactly how it works.
Got to go through it.
There's a ranking system, and so and that's not the military. That's life. And so it's like, if you want to climb a ladder, good luck starting on rung 4. You stupid for that. What are you doing? Like, you can't do that. What are you doing? Right. Go walk up some stairs. You gonna start on step 7? Like, come on, man. Like, what are you talking about? You're not no giant. Like, but we act like it oftentimes, right? And I think that's the key. Is like, what I'm learning, at least in the time that I've had an opportunity to do some of the things I'm doing. And I'm sure with you guys building the platforms you guys are building and the things that you guys are continuing to do, it's like, it's refreshing to come across different people. First off, exposure is everything, first and foremost. And then secondary, it's like, that obviously gives perspective, but like, it's wild, because, you see how people do what they do. You know what I'm saying? You see how they do what they do, and then it puts you in a place, like, I think oftentimes we think that to be humble is something that's prophesizing or self-developed. I think like being humble just comes from like getting enough exposure to stuff.
Life humbles you.
Yeah, life. Yeah, like if you're not like, ironically, the ones that are hermits tend to be the ones that keyboard warriors, and you know what I mean. Like, they tend to be the keyboard warriors. I'm like, you probably lack a lot of perspective. Nothing wrong in it. It's just that's probably why you're acting the way you're acting.
Yeah, you only got one mind, one thought, or one train of thought.
Yeah, and I always say this, like, people that have been like handed everything in life, they haven't really experienced life, so they don't know a lot, like, as much as we do. Like, we've been through a lot of stuff. Like, we've lived the life, and I just feel like we've learned a lot of different things than someone that's just been sheltered their whole lives, and that's had a good life growing up. They might have had a good life, but we have a lot more understanding of like what can go wrong, and we've learned from it a lot.
And coming also from like the
like a BIPOC community or what?
Right, like we're not like, well, no, like we're like Orientals in a way. Like we're Hispanic and shit, so like we see that side of like, okay, we see how that goes.
Sometimes we get looked at weird.
Yeah, right. So it's like
we get expected to act a certain way, like.
Yeah.
I've moved.
Or get treated a certain way.
Yeah.
Or that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other side of it.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like you, I went from Joshua, which was like basically like Caucasian school, and they treated me weird because I was Hispanic.
Hit down.
And then I moved to Poly, to the east side.
Oh, wow. That's like, a transition. Yeah,
they were like, oh, what are you doing, white girl? Just because the way I talk, they kept calling me white girl and stuff. I'm like, I'm Mexican and Salvadorian. I speak Spanish. What are you talking about? It took me like a year to not be bullied in Poly. And once I made friends, it was cool. But in Joshua, the bullying was so bad. Like, that was one of the worst schools I've ever been to. I'd rather go to Poly and be bullied for a year than have to go back and see like all the kids being made fun of just because of the clothes they wear.
For me too, like I relate with you. Like, you kind of had an identity crisis where I was like, I'm light skinned, so like for me it was like all the Hispanics and Mexicans that like I grew up with, like they treated me different. Like they thought I was like, they would like make fun of me or like talk down on me. I'm like, what? And then
like, I'm literally you, bro.
Yeah, on the other spectrum, like the the preppy kids, the Caucasians and stuff. Like I was cool with them at the same time because I was different for them, but at least cool enough to like they can So it's kind of like, all right, what am I like? I want to fit in over here, but I also want to fit in over here, and I was kind of like in between, just like riding that wave. Like, okay, I'm cool with everybody. I don't care.
But once you find yourself, that's when you stop giving a fuck. Like once you actually figure out who you are in life and what your values are, that's when things change for you.
Yeah, and another thing too, like the basketball, like that was my main sport, like growing up.
Yeah,
basketball. Yeah, dude.
Okay,
I
we have to get
I want to see y'all Play
I
against
know,
each
right?
other.
Yeah, no. I mean, speaking of, like one thing that we want to do is we're working towards it. I'm gonna give a quick little shout out, but like, I'm not sure. Do y'all know Cosign Magazine?
Oh yeah, from Dallas.
Yeah. So Cosign Mag's dope. They just had a little mixer event recently on Tuesday, and so I was actually supposed to fly in today originally, but when I saw that they had a Tuesday event, I actually was like, oh, and I talked to KG the other day. He's the CEO, and so. When we went to the event, I was like, "Hey, KG, I just came into town just to come to y'all's event, so like I just want to give them a shout out because they're amazing, amazing people doing amazing things for the culture. But why I'm bringing it up is they're doing a really cool. They do this Cosign experience every year, and it's like a couple of days of different things like workshops for entrepreneurs, awards, cool little things and stuff. Yeah. And one of them is going to be a basketball tournament. And so they're doing a basketball tournament. Yeah. And then this year's theme is each team is to pledge to a nonprofit in DFW. Is to pledge some of their, I was talking to KG about it. So KG, if you're listening, man, KG. And so, but yeah, amazing organization, amazing people. But yeah, speaking of the basketball, we're looking to do a tournament of our own. It may not be this year, but, something that I just find to be fun because, like Bruce Lee said, hey, like one of the greatest ways to train the mind is by training the body, because like by doing physical stuff, it screws with your head. Yeah. Like that's a given, you know what I mean? Like to do anything physical, you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's like, there you go. You're getting a mental workout right there. Like right there. Like that
you get
thing.
Your blood flowing.
Yeah. That thing that's blocking you, you're like, I don't want to. And then you're like, that's the point. Like you're getting to work out both of them. So, but yeah, I love hooping, man. Like when's the last time you played?
It's been a long time.
You better get ready.
Hey man.
Yeah. Hey, I'm down. Let me get back in. I'll be like that at work, like just like pretending like
you be like walking through the little doorways, just people be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You just don't get it. You just don't get it." I'm like, go watch some ESPN highlights. Man. Stop. Get out of my face.
Do you still watch sports? Like,
great question. Actually, not at all. Yeah. I think ever since I went on that self-discovery journey and whatnot. When I got out of the sports environment, the one thing I realized was like, as an adult, it's tough to play organized sports or team sports, right? And so it's really hard to like go play, because you play basketball, bro. Like any decent game is gonna be at least threes. That's 6 people on a court. Right. I mean, that's not a lot, but that's a couple of bodies. Right. And if you want to play a decent game, it's 4s or 5s. That's 8 to 10 people. Yeah. Play football, forget about it. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of bodies on the field, and so. It's really difficult. So then I found myself like I was just rediscovering my interest. Like what are aspects that I liked about sports, right? For example, when I hoop, I always actually liked playing at parks better than I did at a gym. And as I spent time as an adult, like trying to deconstruct some of these things, like, because I was like, if I can't do this, what was it that I liked about it, right? And I started to realize, I was like, oh, I like being outside. Yeah. Like I like being outside. That's how we were raised, at least. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I throw a motherfucker in the dirt. Like that's how we played. I don't know about these kids, but like that's what we did. And so for me, I was like, oh, I enjoy that. There's something about it. And then as you spend more time, so then I got into things that you can do alone, right? That might be hiking, that might be running, that might be swimming, that might be hiking. Yeah, I love hiking. That might be rock climbing or whatever, right? Stuff that you can do solo dolo. And so I'm like, well, this is practical because I don't need nobody. Right. And
maybe a dog.
I mean, that'd be nice, but we saw a cute dog on the way over here. And so, so like, I think like for me, it's just been, as I gravitated towards that, naturally I just stopped watching sports, man. I was like,
it was the same for me.
You'd rather act it out than actually just sit there and watch.
Yeah. Now I'll be honest. Now with my company, it's ironic. It's a full circle. Now that like with Holistic, my health company, and then like with Nerve, we'll do certain events that kind of overlap and stuff like that. I'm finding myself slowly getting back into that because we're like getting back into the athletic world, and I'm also like training for specific sports. Like I just got into boxing, I got my coach, and then like we're doing certain I'm trying to train for this triathlon I want to do, and ideally by next year, we'll see, but probably the following year because it's obnoxious and stuff like that. So I'm like, inevitably it's like when you spend time in something, it's not too far-fetched that you're like consuming content around it, right? But for some time I wasn't doing those things, so naturally I was like, I was more of looking into rock climbing or like that's where my time was going.
Do you do tennis at all?
Love tennis. Love tennis.
Too.
I'll smoke somebody. Hey, look.
No, I'll beat you at tennis.
I don't know about that.
Tennis is my sport.
I don't know about that. I gotta see that for myself.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to play a few rounds.
Volleyball?
I could do a bit of volleyball, but I do it weird.
Sand volleyball is
I
So
love that
some
shit.
people,
So
like
fun.
most people do it like this, and I do it like this. Like I freaking.
Wait, you talking
What
about to
depends.
serve?
like all the time.
Yeah, if people serve like this, I'm not playing.
No, but like they always hit the ball like this, and I'm just like jumping high trying to just
Hey, jump serve.
smash
Smack
it
that
down all the time.
I
So
love
to
it.
me, like if I try to do it like this, it's only if I'm trying to pass it to someone
Sure.
else.
Right.
That's how it should.
But
Yeah.
sports are fun though. Like that's the thing. Like,
Yeah, we just we did it was Stepco and Too High. It's two brands, and they did a kickball game against each other.
No way.
Yeah, and they invited me out to come out because like we actually had Dank 817 on. He's the one.
I
the
love
main
Dank.
one does. He's the main one who does Too High. So he's like, yeah,
Oh,
come
that's
out and
right.
play.
Wait, is that Dank and Eric?
Kinky.
Yeah, Kinky,
And
K,
Kinky?
yeah, Eric,
Yeah.
Love those guys.
yeah. But yeah, dude, it's fun. Like, just I hadn't played kickball since probably like elementary. Like,
Yo, kickball is fun.
dude, and we
you can
we
hurt
got
your
into
ankle
it.
though real quick.
Yeah, we got into it. Like, people were getting into it. Like, saying, like,
PTSD
no.
kicking in.
I know, it's just like you have to
Not
hit it
for
at the
real.
right angle, or else you're gonna be like, oh fuck.
No
Oh
facts.
yeah, dude. And I remember I was getting ready, like we were about to start, and someone was asking somebody else, like over here, like, when's the last time you like ran in a full sprint? And I like thought I was like, God damn, when is the last time I ran a full sprint? Like, it's been a minute.
No, seriously. Yeah, it's funny, like, when you'll think about, like, beyond sports, just, like, stuff that, like, you may have
Yeah.
done, and you're like, when?
Life,
Like,
just like what
yeah,
you've
like-
done in life.
Yeah.
Like, when we were talking about earlier about writing, like,
Oh,
when's
yeah,
the
yeah.
last time I wrote, like, a whole note to myself? Or when's the last time I, whatever it might be? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's kind of tripped out.
For real.
Yeah, we
that's
used to do
wild.
that every single day. We would have gym, we would have English class, like science. We would learn about that every day, and now it's just like it's up to us now to learn it. You have to do
Or
your own
exercise.
research. You have to get outside and do your own shit.
Exercise your body and your brain
Yes.
daily.
Hey, man.
So you recently had an accomplishment with Nerve.
We did.
Tell us about that.
Wait, which one?
The IRS one
Yes, this one is super exciting. So recent meaning today.
today.
So just a brief on how nonprofits work, because they're annoyingly complicated. But so all a nonprofit is, it's just a tax designation. So you're still whatever you are as a company, right? You can be an LLC, corporate, whatever you choose. You can be a company, but all you're doing is you're contacting the IRS saying, we want to be this style of company, which is a nonprofit. And the 501c3 status is just giving you the tax exempt status, meaning if you go buy something, they're not going to charge you taxes, or you're going, taxes aren't as involved for you or involved at all. And so,
You have to pay taxes.
of course.
At the end of it, yeah.
Yeah. At the end of it all. Yes, of course we definitely do. But great question. And tax liabilities work very differently as well. Very depending on how large you are. If you're small, maybe not that big of a difference. Medium starts to play a role. Large, tons of complications. Not necessarily bad. It's just, who are your accountants and who are your team, and what have you. Now, without getting too deep into it, what's the reason? Oftentimes, what most people typically know nonprofits for is just like social causes, right? Like some people are just simply doing because they believe in something. And sadly enough, majority of founders are actually like this. They think they're doing it because it's actually the more righteous thing to do. Because the way that people perceive it is that by being a non-profit, not for profit, they think that they're not collecting revenue. And you could talk to many founders, they actually think that this is how it works. Which, my point about nonprofits is that's very scary, to think that a leader is believing something and that's how they're designing their company. Now, why is that scary? Why is that scary? Because in a for-profit company, if I'm a for-profit company and I make pens, tomorrow if these don't sell, I can say, you know what? Pencils work better. Nobody's going to tell me I can't do that. I can do it, and maybe it's a better idea. There's nothing holding me back except for my team and what I think is the best decision as the CEO, right? But as a nonprofit, guess where I get my money from? I get my money from foundations, grants. I get my money from institutions, right? Other companies or potentially, the government or things of that sort. Or I get my money from private equity, other investors that are just wealthy. And so I can get my money from them. But if I say, hey, look, I'm selling this program, but yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about it anymore. It's not working really well. I want to sell this program today. They're going to be like, whoa, hold on, man. Like, I gave you money for this program. Why are you trying to do that? I'm not just going to let you do that because the incentives, the investor sentiment is very different. So it's a different ballgame. Now, why? Well, guess what? If there is one foundation providing money, but there's all of these nonprofits fighting for it, the irony is we're doing something for a social cause, yet we're fighting for the money. So we're incentivized to battle one another. Is that very logical? Doesn't seem to be. And so, but that's the funny part about it is we're incentivized to battle with one another even more than for-profits. Because a for-profit company would be like, whatever, we'll just go over here now. Or we'll go do this. We're like, no, but I need that. And so then we're like, get out the way. And we over here stiff-arming people. And it's like, whoa. So then one thing that we're passionate about at Nerve is trying to find a different model, right? And we think some of that could be like partnerships, things of that sort, whatever have you. Now, bringing the full circle, today we got our official 501c3 status. So I was on the phone with my boy, and typically it takes anywhere from like 3 to 9 months, depending on how long the IRS takes. So of course we've had put our application in, we were just waiting. And I'm spiritual, I'm not necessarily religious, nothing against or for anything, but I was raised Christian, but I'm a very spiritual person. And so I was supposed to be coming into town a handful of weeks ago, didn't work out, weather was crazy, flight got canceled. I was supposed to come in town for a different event. And I was kind of pissed, and I was like, why didn't you let me come, man? Like, I had this whole plan, I was going to surprise my team and all this stuff. I had a perfect designed plan, whatever, didn't work out. I had a lot of reflection to go through, and I felt like I needed it, whatever have you, and we're here today. So I'm on the phone, and my dad walks in my room, and he's like, he knows I'm on a business call, so he's like signaling stuff. I was like, what? And then he had told me I had some mail before I came into town, and I saw the company name, which is my employer. And so it was like, I was like, oh, I know it's just a paycheck. Cool. And I grab it, and then he's like, oh, yeah, and there's this. And then it was like an envelope. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I look, and I see Internal Revenue Service. And I'm talking to my boy that I haven't talked to since he moved to Bangladesh. And it's 7 months. And so that's already a mental bookmark for me, right? Like, oh, this intimate moment for him and I. And then I'm like, Internal Revenue. And I was like, hold on, hopefully it's not. I'm like, hopefully it's nothing for like tax stuff for me individually or whatever. But then when I saw Nerve Corporation, I was like, I took a big breath. I was like, bro, hold on. I was like, bro, give me a minute. I ripped it open, and then sure enough, I saw the letter. So I was like, we're officially, 501c3. We're in there.
That's fucking badass. Well, cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Yes, ma'ams.
Why do people always like have to?
It's supposed to be. I can't remember. Everybody has different stories, but
What's your story?
I mean, a couple of other people's stories.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's supposed to be a. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can't remember. But I know some people say it's a certain version of respect for something. Some people say it's like something like that. Some people say that there's like some kind of like the G code equivalent for like bartenders, that you're supposed to like your cheers in your bar to the person that served you. I've heard a lot of different things. Like some of those.
Wondered.
Yeah, like I've heard some of those things, and then some people are just assholes and they just do it because
they want to splash their drink everywhere.
Exactly.
Dang, we kept slamming this mic, so
okay.
You might hear some weird stuff in that mic in a bit.
It actually hasn't been like too bad.
So you keep talking about your move. You moved to LA, right?
Yes.
Tell us more about that, your experience, and what made you decide to move.
Yeah, so moving to LA, so like for the last 2 years I was city shopping, so like I had gone to Philly, Chicago, Miami, Denver. I hadn't had a chance to go to ATL, but LA, some other places, and so Phoenix. And the whole reasoning behind that was, anytime I made, like, y'all know who Scott Adams is? So he's a very brilliant brain, and so he's actually the creator of this cartoon called Dilbert.
I've heard of Dilbert.
Yeah, so it's arguably the most successful cartoon in history, comic strip in newspapers. And so, interesting guy. I would highly suggest to look into him. And one thing he says is, I never make a decision unless there's 2 or more benefits involved. Because he's like, if you make a decision, it's solely for that one reasoning, you're making a poor decision. Why? Because you could spend slightly more time to have something that has 2, 3, 4 more benefits within it. And it takes, in hindsight, a little more time up front, but on the back end, compound interest. Mm-hmm. And so my whole theory was, when I make decisions, is like, I use that principle, and I'm like, I can move just for myself, right? Like, I can just move because I want to do something different. And I love my city, but I'm a human being. I want to experience the world. I like culture. And environments, like environment switching. And so that's one aspect, but the other aspect is obviously professionally. And so I was going to move to Chicago. I had that finalized. I was going to move to Chicago. The only other market was going to be either Philly or Jersey, and because of where they're uniquely positioned. And why I ended up deciding on LA is for the 3 companies I have. So I have my natural health company, Holistic Health. So we sell like CBD products. We're working on a tea line that should launch later this year. And then obviously Nerve, as we've discussed, so mental health nonprofit. And then my record label, Age Recordings. And so I was like, LA makes the most sense because automatically for the media stuff, come on.
Right.
I mean, it's Hollywood. And then health stuff, you don't have to sell people on health in California.
Yeah, they're ready for it.
Yeah,
True.
you don't have to sell them on health.
True
If I go to Chi-Town, I mean, they're a little better, but they're still Midwestern, culture. East Coast, forget about it. Forget about it.
Forget about it. I was about to say that shit too.
And then obviously the mental health space, like social, they're far more socially, like they're liberal.
There's
They're a
so
liberal
many
state.
people in LA too. Like it's just so
densely populated.
condensed.
Second largest market in America.
It's a good thing you didn't go to Philly too, because the whole oil or the
I
chemical
s-
spill
yeah,
shit.
the
Like
water
they said,
thing?
yeah, they said that no one can drink like the actual water. They could start drinking bottled water. That shit's crazy. That's a
Hey,
whole other story.
sometimes you wonder how safe that is because when I was living in H-Town, man, when I was living in
I don't
Houston,
even trust bottled water.
that's what I'm saying. When I was living in Houston, Nestle, Ozarka, and all these companies got hit with crazy lawsuits because they were bottling lake water. Hey, wow, man.
You have to really do some research to see where you're getting your stuff from, because you can be handed anything, you won't even think twice about it because it's normal, but
For real.
You're like, oh,
some
great
shit
branding.
can fuck you up.
Right. It's spring water. It's all natural. It says it on the bottle.
See,
I
that's
can
why
read.
I always try and drink core water.
Ooh.
But sometimes, one time I had a core bottle that kind of smelled
Oh,
weird.
core. I thought you said corn water. I was
No,
like,
corn. No, core.
I was like, what?
The pH balance,
Corn.
the one with the blue lid.
Yeah.
Corn water?
Yeah, people always ask me, why are you trying to drink fancy water? I'm like, I don't know what's in
Hey,
the
I
other water.
love coconut water.
Coconut
though.
water. I was trying to see if there was going to be a Topo Chico at the
Ooh.
little corner store, but there wasn't.
Oh, we like Topo Chico.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're Topo Chico
Wait,
people.
do you mix them together?
Which?
Well,
Coconut water and Topo Chico?
I did a handful of times. I mean,
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
going out of my way. But
yeah.
But like Coke recently bought Topo Chico. And
No.
No way.
No,
Yeah,
don't
it's
say
been
that.
like a year or 2 years now, and
Sheesh.
I
That's
think
why they keep
that's
starting
why
coming out
there
with
was
the
a
plastic
shortage.
bottles.
Yeah.
That's why there's been a shortage of Topo Chico, because they've been like mass producing it now.
Yeah.
Damn.
I know.
That's crazy.
Whenever they bought it, I was like, what? Why would you do that? Then they started like promoting it, marketing it more in the U.S. once
Right,
they
right.
bought it. Because it used to be not that well known.
No,
and
it'd
then
be
out of
mostly in
nowhere,
the
it was
South.
just like, bam.
Yeah, it was mostly in the
That's
South.
when Coke bought it.
Yeah.
Bro,
And, I mean,
I was a waiter one time, and it was in downtown too.
I'm glad it was only one time.
Yeah, no,
Because I had a whole career of that.
that shit sucks.
It does.
But it was in downtown, and it's downtown, mostly Caucasians,
Fort Worth.
business people, so this lady's like ordering her shit, and she's like, can I have I couldn't really hear her either, so I didn't really like fully hear it, but I was like, what do you want? She's like, Topo Chico, and I was like, what the fuck? I don't know. I don't know. It was weird.
This is funny.
The Topo Chico
She like looked at me so stupid, like, you're Mexican, like, how do you not know?
Yikes. Gee, she pulled that card.
She didn't say that, but I know she was
She
thinking
said it
it.
with her eyes.
Yeah.
She said it with her eyes.
I think it's like when they came out with all the different flavors. That's when Coke.
Oh, yeah,
came
yeah,
out. Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
weird.
I guess that
like,
makes
the
more
plastic
sense because
bottles.
when I'm thinking timeline, if you
Yeah.
said 2 years, that's when I
And
started
the
seeing.
plastic
Like
bottles
they used
too.
to have
Yep.
like just the lime, and that was it.
Well,
Yeah.
that wasn't even there for quite some time. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden I was
Right,
like,
right.
okay, that makes kind of okay.
Now all
makes
the
sense.
bars have it and stuff.
Yeah, what was that?
The blue light.
Oh.
Yeah, it died.
it died.
Okay, I was very confused.
Oh, fuck it.
Well.
So, I know with like everything you do as far as like, the non-profit and all of that, you're also like a big content creator, because I know you've been working with Murdered, shout out Micah, like doing other things like that. What does it mean to you to be a content creator? Like how do you use your creative brain, and how do you, with the company and everything, like how do you use that?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. For me personally, at least, I think content is about narrative, and I think that there's a lot of people that do a phenomenal job at that, and I think there's also a lot of people that just simply make dope shit. Nothing wrong in it, but I think some people just make dope shit and that's it. And I think what I would like to see, this is probably me being too philosophical, but what I would like to see more of is like people having more of like an agenda behind what they're doing, right? And so tying that into Murdered, that's why I just really enjoyed working. I enjoy working with Micah because he's such an intentional founder. And to me, that's a very like, you know, that's close to my heart to work with people that are very intentional and people that are very like geared in, you know, like geared into a specific narrative.
Like they're calculated, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely. And like, well, maybe not even know what they're doing, but more of like know what they want.
Right.
You know, and I think that's more important is know what they're doing is great, but it's like saying, you know, I can give a basketball analogy, but like I remember one time, so like this is like middle school, so it was like, oh, okay, we got the A team squad versus the B team squad, and I remember I'm the point guard and I'm playing obviously with the A team squad, and then my coach was like, hey, I want to scrimmage and this and that, and then I had asked him, I was like, hey, I'm curious because obviously usually, you know, you have teams, players, and coaches that'll dog on the B or C team squad. I was like, hey, I want to try something. Is that cool with you? He's like, what's up? And I was like, let's scrimmage the C team squad, but I want to run point. Like, I want to run it. And he's like, why? And I was like, I just want to see something. And we smoked the A team squad. And it's like, it wasn't me. It was just the right piece. It was the right chemistry, right? And so it's not always about having the best players on a team, right? We've seen that happen in leagues, right? Also, where you had the most powerful players in the league come together and they just suck.
Right.
They're
too much
terrible.
going on.
Yeah, they're terrible together because they don't have chemistry. Everybody's trying to be the star.
Right.
But then when you have chemistry, all of a sudden it seems flawless, right? And so
it's been like the Lakers for like the past like 2 years. But
yeah, I can't say that when I get back out there. But
Right.
they might get mad at me. But yeah, no, it has been. You're not lying. And so, yeah, I think with content, man, that's something I also desire to see is like good chemistry, good brand creativity, and whatever. And for me, yeah, at least with, you know, Murdered and Micah and what have you, like, you know, the old you must die, that's the whole narrative, right? And it's an act or a reference to like rebirth, right? And that hit, you know what I'm saying? Like that hit. And like I rock obviously all the Murdered gear when I'm wherever I am, but and you know, it always grabs attention. Like I'll be at the airport, I'll be in a different city or state or whatever, and people are like looking at me crazy. And sometimes I'm like, "What you looking at, man?" And I forget what I'm wearing, and I'm like, "Oh, I literally am wearing a cap that says murder."
Yeah.
You know, and I'll have people
it's like a Netflix special or something.
right, and I'll have people. That's funny. I'll have people be like, "Oh, you're murdered," and I'm like, "What? Why do you say murder to me?" Like I'm like, "That's creepy." And I'm like, "What the fuck? This guy's weird." And I'm like, "Oh, that was me. I'm the one who instigated that." But
Yeah.
so like I love Micah. I love the team at Murdered. I'm excited to continue to grow and like, you know, push forward with that narrative and really I think that's the era we're living in, which is like that sense of creative snappiness,
Right.
which is things that grab attention. Because hey man, like I think it was a couple years ago, but like we literally have a shorter attention span than goldfish now. Like goldfish have like a 9.2 second attention span. We got like 8.9 now.
Dude, for real. Like I remember 2012, I used to spend hours on YouTube
Fucking
just
notifications.
I used to spend hours on YouTube just watching video after video, and it'd be like a 12-minute video. It could be an hour-long video. I'm watching that thing. I'm tuned in.
You're cool with it.
Nowadays, I'm like, fuck. You know, even like the whole podcast thing, like doing an hour, it's like I know people aren't listening or watching the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
see the
now,
analytics,
like
y'all.
but now it's like the shorts and the reels and like all that. Like break it down into those like smaller increments. Like people are now tuning in. And they're like, maybe it's another incentive for them to be like, oh, like that was interesting. Let me go watch the whole thing.
Yes.
Tap into that.
Well, there's like nowadays what I call it over at our teams is like, hey, like everything in pre-production should be designed for micro billboards. You know, it's like if you can't build your pre-production of what the production should look like, and you don't have time markers for these metaphorical billboards, then like you're not gonna grab them.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah, basically.
Say that again. The
micro billboards.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and so like tying back into the content for me, like everything for me is very cryptic. Like there's this writer, he's like, I don't know, some old white guy, and so like at some point in time to where it was around the Hemingway art, you know, the writers and all that, you know, and what have you, and so
Good old Ernest.
good old Ernest. and so it was some other writer. He wasn't as big as like the Hemingways of that time, but was
it Walt Whitman?
No, definitely not. He's another goat. Yeah, he's a goat. And so what he had said was he writes for the pyramid, and then what he meant by that is he explains it in one of his like books, and he says when you write for the pyramid, what you're writing for is the foundation of a pyramid is the everyday layman's man. Is a layman, and you're writing for something in such a way, aka think about it from rap. It's a bar that connects with everybody. It's the bar that connect. Like when I said soldier in general, I'm in the field.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I could say that. And people are like, yeah, that's me.
Right.
Yeah, that's me, bro.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, you know, you get hyped. So it's the very basic bar. Then he says that the, you know, like essentially the middle of the pyramid is going to be for, this is what happens when you have long hair, y'all. Get away.
Yeah, we know. We know.
Get away. Oh, thank you. Yes.
We have curls.
Finally, I can relate.
Curls are everywhere.
Finally, I can relate. And so, but yeah, so he says he writes for the middle of the pyramid. The middle is that they're not the layman, but they're that person that's like, they're a fan. So they're like, nah, man, like I know he said that, but what he means is blah, blah, blah.
They keep listening to the stuff that's not on the radio.
Hey, and they know. And then you have the pinnacle of the pyramid. He's like, that's the super fan, right? I mean, I'm paraphrasing for him, but essentially that's the super fan, and that's the person that's like, man, all y'all are wrong, bro. If you go watch that interview in 2019, he was talking about his mama, and then this is that, and this is actually what that means, and he was and you're like, whoa, bro, like why you dick riding, bro, like you know, but they really know, and so it's like. For me, when you ask that question of what is content creation to me, it's like I design things for that. I design it for the pyramid where I'm like, for example, the record I released that the music video Loot, right? Like Loot.
That's a badass video, by the way.
Thank you. Shout out to my boy Alex, X-Ray Vision
I love
Films.
like the
the
wardrobe,
visuals were...
the hair on fire, the head on fire. Like that's a badass video.
Thank you.
I feel like there's a couple inspirations like that. When I seen it, I was like, okay, Kendrick, I see that.
The
and
LSD, whenever he's like looking down into the on the table or the mirror, that reminds me of the music video LSD.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Rocky's, we was listening to some Rocky on the way. Praise the Lord. I love that. The old cozy tape vibes.
Yeah.
And so, so like with Loot, you know, obviously when you hear the word Loot, you know, naturally you're gonna think money. And fun story. I haven't told this on any interviews yet, but I'll say it here. So actually half of the music video got lost. Yeah, that was terrible. And so what happened was the last scene where we popped the champagne bottle, what happened was the champagne got on the camera and it unwrote half of the entire shoot day. What? We lost half of the entire shoot day. I never said it out loud because it sucks to hear out loud.
Y'all didn't throw it in some rice? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. That would not work.
Right? And then, so what happened was we actually had a whole different, like the screenplay was written entirely different. Like, everything was different. And so it worked out, blessing in disguise. And so what happened was the second half of the video, it worked out design-wise because I was working on a new concept production-wise. But the second scene, whenever I'm wearing, and there's like the poker scene and that scene and everything, that was the second shoot day. And so since that happened, we had to go book a different location and we had to go. But the cool part was one of the artists that I absolutely look up to and I'm super like fond of, he wasn't able to make it to the first shoot day, but he's actually in that scene. And so do y'all know Cure for Paranoia? Cameron McLeod?
It sounds familiar,
so,
but sometimes I just listen to music.
Shout out to my boy Cameron, man. Like, yo, one of the hottest artists, in my opinion, in the game right now. And so he's like a young 3 Stacks. Like, in my opinion, like the way this man spits, it's effortless. He sounds like Andre, and it's just like his spit is just crazy. He's a Dallas-based artist. And he already has a record with Badu. He has a record with Bun B. Like, he went on tour with Tony Williams. I sound like his manager or something, but like, an amazing artist. And when he was able to slide, I was like, dude, the fact that like my debut, you know, essentially, I was able to have an artist that I absolutely look up to, and he's a huge mental health advocate, and like, you know, we really correlate. He's, you know, he works with children and all that stuff. One thing I'll tell you is like, I'm one of those people where I'm like, I have this line in a song where I'm like, when my love, your life a tragedy. Because I'm just an aggressive lover. So I'm like the biggest hype man whenever I love somebody. So like, yeah, amazing people. So it was a blessing in disguise. So, and then the whole concept with Loot was, it was never about money, it was about knowledge. So when I'm walking around in the briefcase, we weren't able to shoot that scene, part of because of that, but I actually opened up the briefcase and I had all of my favorite books in the briefcase, but that scene also. So, and then we decided to just leave it as a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
That's fucking badass.
Dude, cinematic.
Well, thank you for letting us in on that little piece of juice.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
A little juice.
Yes. Got a little lemon juice in here right now.
Well, piggybacking off of that, though, what does it mean for you to be an influencer? Because I know nowadays, like, people think of influencer and they're like, oh,
yeah, I was gonna say like that
TikTok shit.
I was gonna say you kind of rubbed me the wrong way when you said that. But yeah, no, like what I mean by that is to be an influencer is what's up, baby. What I mean by that is
that's the chit.
That's the little babes.
All good.
And for me, like, obviously I understand the terminology. Obviously I understand the terminology, and it's like, okay, yeah, to be of influence or whatever have you. But like, I don't know, man. I think like, in my opinion, I wouldn't say like I view it as an influence. Not trying to be extra or something, but like, I just feel like, I don't know, man. I just feel like we're all trying to be totally human, man. Like, I'm not really honestly trying to piggyback off our slogan at Nerve, but like, I genuinely believe these things, you know? Like, I think the idea of influencer also is like negatively charged as it is, as a word. Right. That like it invokes this a sense of like power within somebody that like really isn't like there anyways. And what I mean by that is like, you're already capable of that. So like, what's this term gonna really add or subtract from you as the individual, right? So I think it's more about really being you, and I think that's what's being lost in the world, because by saying somebody's an influencer, in my opinion, it's a singularity now, right? Like, you're an influencer, I'm an influencer, but you're not me and I'm not you. Right. So like, why is that word accurate for the both of us? Why y'all being grouped together? Yeah, why is that word accurate for the both of us, right? So it's like, I'm just me. You know, I'm the human that I am. And then I think that's a little more easier to digest. You know, like that's a little, yeah, that makes sense. But influencer, I'll be like, now I gotta think. You know what I mean? And so,
what are you influencing and why?
Right. And then, but the cool part is, I understand the mechanic behind it, which is it's convenience. It allows us to be able to better compartmentalize and categorize and put things into containers, so we can move faster as a species. That's cool. Right. I'm cool with that. But so to me, the question you're asking and what I'm seeing off of it is like a person of influence. I don't think I'm that right now, but I think we're working on it. And I think that it humbles me to like even have somebody say that word to me, to say like, oh, you might hold a sense of influence, so how do you feel about that? I mean, personally, I don't know how to feel. I've always been terrible about taking compliments. Like, I've always been like, okay, thanks. And they're like, dang, dude. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, this makes me nervous, you know? Like, I just don't know how to react to that, because I'm a hyper competitive person. So I'm like, someone might see something, I'm like, I don't see that though. Like, I'm like, I got a million other things to work on, you know? Doesn't mean I don't know how to value like the traction I've made, but that's a private relationship for myself, right? Like, how I reward myself and how I look at my accomplishments is for me and me only, you know? That's how I view it, at least. Do I celebrate that with my people? Absolutely. They're my motherfucking people. You know what I mean? Like, of course I'm gonna celebrate with my people, but again, back to being a spiritual person, is like, I take that back. In my opinion, I feel like I don't have to deliver that energy to somebody that's not a part of my core essence. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to celebrate with nobody I don't want to celebrate with, you know? And I know that some people are like, oh, that sounds a little, you know, that's aggressive or this or that. But I'm like, but I think the irony is oftentimes when we're loose with our energy, I always, you know, lost. Yeah, exactly. Like, I have this other thing I say, I'm like, loose with the energy, hot with the head, you know? And I'm like, that's the funny part, because those people that tend to be loose with their energy, they're usually very, like, they can get riled up pretty quickly. And I'm like, I wonder why. And it's because you're not in containment of your own energy. So like, things can affect you pretty quickly, or you can become in a state of erratic nature pretty quickly. But like, a reserved person is reserved because you have reserved your energy. You know what I'm saying? And then I choose when I get to distribute that. Or, you know what I'm saying? Right. And there's nothing wrong in that whatsoever. I understand some people might be like, well, blah, blah, blah. And especially when you get into a position of leadership, nowhere I'm close to quite yet. But, you know, they'll be like, well, you now have a responsibility. You're this person. You're in this state of leadership and whatnot. I agree with that. But that's why it's even more paramount to be like, I have to be even more selective, because you do have a state of responsibility when you're choosing certain lanes, right? You know, especially like nowadays.
That's why you do the work you do, though, is because you're putting your energy into that work, and then once you're ready to just be humble and be yourself, your work's already out there. Like, people can see who you've been and what you've done. And so
Yeah.
you don't have to talk to all of them.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, man, is like, you know, again, like, I love talking. I love conversations. I like talking and everything. But the thing I enjoy the most is, like, doing stuff. And so I think the most exciting part is, like, all right, I was about to take this somewhere else, and I didn't know if that was appropriate. But like, I think the most enjoyable thing about life is, like, physical communication.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
And I was gonna take that to something a little more intimate, but like, you know, that's the deepest level. Like, you know, we're all adults, but like, let's say something about the topic of sex, for example, right? And it's like, that's the deepest form that we're pretty close to understanding of, like, expression. You know what I'm saying? There's an exchange of expression. And so, like, to me, I'm like, you know, even that topic, right? Not to be too preachy or nothing to nobody, but I'm like, people loose with the way that they allow, you know, they're loose with the way that they allow people to enter their inner matrix. You know what I'm saying?
Soul ties.
Yeah, soul ties. And, you know, I ain't gonna sign this contract with you. And so I think that's the key is, like, if and when you put yourself in that position, like, your actions should always do the talking. They should always do the talking. And your inaction also does the equal. You know, in retrospect, like, your inaction also talks just as loudly. And so conversation is beautiful, but conversation without, you know, application is useless. You know? Right. But as you can tell, I'm a fairly philosophical person.
Yeah, that's good though. That's good.
That's on my LinkedIn too. Mine's is like philosophical mindset on my LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn.
I think like my Facebook bio or like LinkedIn. I think I also translated LinkedIn. I was like, I do all things through creativity, something corny like that. But yeah. So like, I mean, to me, like, I'm just talking about this because, you know, I enjoy this type of conversation with people like yourselves. But like, obviously in real time, like, I'm not that serious because I don't like to be that serious with, like, strangers. Yeah. Because, you know, like.
That's why you're on a podcast right now, because right now it's
a good platform
showing
for that.
You for yourself.
Yeah, it's a good platform for that. And so I appreciate y'all having me on because, like, to me, these types of platforms are very important, right? Because, again, like, back to 80-20 principle, could we agree, like, I'll give you a direct application, could we agree that 20% of the population derives 80% of what we all experience?
Yeah. I think so.
It's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
There's 20% of the people that get to decide on everything we experience, whether that's that drink that's in your cup, whether that's the table itself, whether it's that journal that was made, whether it's the watch I'm wearing, whether it's the phone
top
that
of the pyramid.
Exactly. That's how it works. And some people are like, well, it shouldn't be that way. I'm like, well,
but
it is.
Yeah, like, there's nothing we can do about it besides
it is.
You trying to get to the top 20%.
Exactly. And or everybody serves a purpose in their place. And so it's like, now the goal, I don't also think is that, because a pyramid is only a pyramid because there is a base.
Yeah.
How you gonna have a pinnacle without a base? And so it's like the people are equally important, if not just as important. And so I think there are people that are always going to serve as, you know, being of the environment, of being employees, being, you know, advocates, being the people that reproduce and become the families of our species and whatnot. Like, that's fine. If that's what that's what is for you, then that's exactly what you should do. Like, the goal is, and that's the sad part about the world we live in now, is like we're being sold stuff. So everyone's like, oh, like, well, I have these kids. Like, should I have done this? Shouldn't I have like built my career, or shouldn't I have done it? And I was like, nah, like, you're doing the thing that you felt was right.
Be happy
like,
with what you have.
Don't let those people, like, unless you actually desire that, then yeah, go above and beyond and figure it out now. Right. But if you're like, but I like this, but like, should I like that? And like, you just said what you like. Right. You said what came out your mouth first. So forget the after, like, thought. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me,
that's not you. That's the marketing.
That's not me. Yeah, that's not me. Like, I'm a very hyper specific person. So I'm like, do I want a family? Do I want a wife? Absolutely. But like, I've always told myself, like, at least
you come first.
Yeah. Well, not even me. My people come first. Is how, like, I'm more intrigued with the idea of our species. So like, I don't really look at myself like I exist because it trips me out a lot. Oh, I don't look at myself like squirrel.
We all do. Something went off over there.
Like, I don't really look at myself. It's weird. Like, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but like, do you ever just kind of like, because you can only see through your lens, right? Do you ever feel like you don't exist? Like, I feel like I'm kind of like just like doing.
Like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing?
It's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird. Like, I don't feel like I'm actually like. I feel like it's sometimes like just a thing going.
Yeah.
Or
like you might be accomplishing so much than you've ever accomplished, but it's like. But for what? Like, what is this all for? Like, where am I going in life?
Yeah.
I feel that a lot. I'm
just like, and I think that's what it boils down to for like the core aspects that's valuable to you. You know, like of like what's valuable to you? Is it family? Is it community? Is it career? Is it, whatever it is?
I feel kind of the same as you. Like, I want us to be happy as a species. I want us to stop destroying the planet. Like, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, it's huge.
I feel like if you love yourself, and then you love the animals around us and the plants and everything, and so you won't keep fucking up the planet. You'll find ways to, start minimizing and start, stopping the climate change and those things. But that's a whole different topic for me.
No, I feel you.
That's like
I talk to my plant babies, and I talk to all the animals I walk around. I'll be saying what's up to dogs all the time.
The squirrels, I'll like see the squirrels in the tree, and I'll just like watch them play. It's just so beautiful. Like, the squirrels are, if y'all ever have a bunch of squirrels in a tree, just watch them, and they're crazy. They're like little ninjas. Like, they really are. They like bounce around.
No, literally, they're fast.
They are, but
they're Ricky Bobby fast.
But they love each other. Like, you see the way they play and stuff, and it's like they have personalities. Everything has a personality if you watch them long enough. But I don't know. It's just sad sometimes that people don't value the importance of other life besides humans. Like,
oh yeah. No, I mean that's the big picture, and I think like the cool part is, where do you fit in all of it?
Yeah. Well, you can either be a savior or you can be a destroyer.
Yeah. I mean, basically. And the cool part is we finally live in a world where you can be a savior and really get a lot of personal things that you want still.
Yeah.
Like you can finally do that. Like, you can finally be a savior and like do all the quote unquote worldly things. Like, you can have the cars you want, you can have the houses you want, or whatever it is that you want. You can go travel the world if you want. You can do really whatever the heck you want.
And make a change while you're there.
Exactly. And so it's like, man, the world really is like, what do they say? The world
is ours.
The world is your clam.
Oyster
or something like that. Clam, mollusk. I don't know.
No, but that is like more true now ever than before because like the world is at our fingertips right now.
Yeah.
Like, with the internet especially.
So what do y'all want?
I want a mountain house and a beach house and a GTR.
Love it.
I just want to be my own boss.
Yeah.
Not have to, work for under anybody, but like have a team, solid team, good family. I don't care about the money. That'll come with it if it does come with it, but that's what I care about. Just having a solid foundation, and then comes the good stuff after that.
What do you want?
I want to change the world. I think it's one of those things where, like, I have a lot of private talks with a lot of my people, obviously, but I'm an obnoxious thinker. And so the way I see things is like, things can change exactly to your desire, my opinion. But, and the world is far more malleable than people make it out to be. Far more malleable than the world makes it out to be. And you have to think, for example, I think probably on average 60 to 70% of the technology we're experiencing right now is directly from one person. One human being. That's very weird.
Maybe two. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs.
I'm talking about even before them. And so what they built on was based off of this person. And so, and I'm talking about Tesla. And so, and then beyond him and so on and so forth. And so, with Steve Jobs, for example, great individual. And if you go read read the documentary Steve Jobs by, it wasn't Walter Isaacson, but I can send it later, but amazing. And if you really go look back on these individuals, like, they shifted, like, one thing I always tell people to remember is not to get too woo-wah, but like, people don't realize that humans every day perform magic. Every single day. Like, you're an alchemist. We get to literally shapeshift things every single day. That could be with your words, that could be with your actions, that could be with your emotions, that could be the way you look at somebody. And the crazy part is people have done this time and time again, but we don't want to believe it for some reason. Like, it's happening right in front of our eyes, but we want to believe it. Because, for example, what is alchemy? Alchemy is just basically like taking the elements and manipulating them. The fuck you think a phone is? That's a bunch of metal, dog.
Yeah.
That ain't nothing but a bunch of metal.
And waves.
How the hell are you experiencing a different reality from metal? Like, you're getting to go into a different world from some pieces of metal.
My thing is, why do we get this and the people before us
Video games.
Bro, Tripped out. A whole new someone designed an entire different existence. This one is already complicated enough. There's another one.
And then
how
VR.
many game developers are there? Gaming studios and what, like, how many realities are there, dude? And everybody's just inventing them out of, like,
the
fast.
metaverse.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic.
That's
a whole other topic
shit
we're not
right
going to
there.
get into. And so sometimes people are too, like, simplified with realizing how complex things actually are because it makes people anxious. Right? They're like, no, that ain't it.
That's like the overthinking shit people want to avoid.
Yeah, that's that, like, when you hit the blunt and you're like,
you
know those memes?
Yeah.
Hit the blunt asking, like, what? Like, and so, so for me, like, you know, when I say the things I say, nowadays, when I was young, I'm a very, like, aggressive person. I mean, I've learned to, like, not do that as much with certain people, but, like, I'm a very turnt person. And so, when I was younger, I just didn't have a filter, so I'd tell everybody everything. I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm working on it, and they're like, what? And I'm like, watch, look, I'm working on this right now, I'm building it, and they're like, dude, you are tripped out, dog. Like, and I'm like, yo, but like, this is very, like, it's logical. Like, I'm mapping exactly how it's gonna happen, and everything I talked about when I was a teenager, I'm doing right now. And so I'm like, talk to me nicely, you know. So I'm like, I'm like, but that's the difference, is that people will be like, hey, I got this, this, and that. And then I'm like, cool, how you going to do it? And they're like, well, and I'm like, come back, you know? Or I'll sit down with you. And that, I think that's the most important part. I'll sit down with you. Not even that I explain, but let's brainstorm together. Because I don't know what the hell you're trying to build. But, like, let's talk about it, right? But then oftentimes people will be like, there's that separation, right? And so it's like, what I want to do is change the world. And I know exactly how I want to go about it, right? And I guess I'll give you this last tidbit because I don't want to talk too much about it. But my opinion, these three companies are the pillars of society. You have holistic health, physical health. You have nerve, mental health. And you have Age Recordings, which is a music company, right? That's spiritual. What is the oldest language there is on this planet? It's music.
Yeah, everyone can understand.
That's the oldest language there is on this entire existence that we understand. And so what is that? It ain't no words, so what is it then? It's a spiritual language.
It just moves you.
It's a spirit. It's a language of spirit.
I learned that from Adventure Time.
Hey, what up,
Honestly,
Adventure Time? I
Jake
love
the dog
that show.
At some point, he was like, you don't have to understand it. It just makes you
It
move.
just makes
your
gets the
knees
people
move.
moving.
Yeah. Like
And-
Jake the dog said that one time, and he is one of my favorite characters of all time.
Yeah.
Just all the things he says. And like
Jake the
that.
dog.
Yes.
We always talk about him.
Because I got him right here waiting for me. But no, at some point he did say, like, you don't have to understand the words. You just have to, it just moves you. It just makes your knees move. And that's what music is. Like,
That's
music,
what it is. That's what it is. You ain't got to
it's
say
not
nothing.
words. It's the rhythm. It's the feeling of it.
That's why I love music and food so much. Because I'm like, you ain't got to say a word, but guess what? You put a nice meal in front of a bunch of different people that have different colors, different backgrounds, different genders, and you put some good music in the background, ain't nobody going to say shit but eat and have a good time.
What's your favorite food? What's your favorite meal?
I'm biased. Oh, okay. The meal is the harder question.
Yeah.
Food,
If you had
like
to pick one
cuisine,
meal.
I'm biased. It's going to be Indian food. And,
Bro, I actually just tried Indian food for the first time, like, probably
no way.
3 months
What
ago.
did you try?
Is it
I don't even
chicken tikka
remember.
masala?
I don't even remember. It was just fire.
Was it orangish looking?
Yes. So
Orange
it was like
chicken
a sauce.
looking? That's one of my
Probably
favorite
chicken tikka or
foods
butter chicken.
ever.
Okay.
The
Probably.
chicken tikka masala, like
Oh, yeah.
that.
I don't know. It was my girl's sister. She was like, "Hey, there's this like place like not too far from here. Let's go." I don't even remember the place. Like she just came and like there was like some bread stuff. Like it was like
Naan,
a flat. Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, fire.
Naan and hummus.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even remember like the other stuff we ate, but all of it was fire. And it's spicy, and I love spicy.
You like spicy food?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Let me see. I might fuck around and just make y'all a little chicken curry or something before I get up out of here.
Okay,
Hey.
please
And
do.
I'll drop some off or something.
No, my favorite
Love
has
it.
always been the chicken tikka masala. Like I've went through the process of making it with an Indian person, like putting it in the yogurt. I don't know if it's like how y'all make it, but putting it in the yogurt and then putting the spices on it and then putting it like on a barbecue grill and just like
Oh, so then it was probably
searing it on each
tandoori.
side.
That's
It
nice.
was so good. Like
Delicious.
that's one of my favorite foods I've ever had.
Delicious. And then the main thing is there's like a misconception about like Indian food because a lot of people think it's spicy, but like that's only regionally. So like I'm from the South, and so if you go to North India, however, they eat like Greek people. It's mostly like Mediterranean styles.
Cheeses.
Okay.
And
No, not even
creams.
that, but it's just like very light fare. It's not very that spicy. It's not too crazy like seasoning wise. And what they eat like in the South, it's kind of similar. I've noticed this about most countries, which is funny.
Yeah.
Most southern parts of countries are like
They
heavier
like the
eaters.
spice.
Yeah.
Well, no, in any country, like just heavier, like bigger
Yeah.
meals, like red meats and stuff like that, and heavy carbs.
Maybe that's because that's where all the like big game animals are.
Maybe
in the
like in countries that could be.
Like
because like think about it, in America too, right? In the South we eat heavier, and in the North it's a little different, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like we eat bunch of meat and this and that, and like potatoes, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And so in South India we eat heavy. It's like on a typical plate you have like a bunch of rice, like 1, 2, maybe 3 entrees, like 2 dishes, right, on your plate. In the North it'll be like not naan, but it'll be like paratha or like roti, which is different versions of bread, like a tortilla or something. And then on the plate, you'll have like these mini bowls, and there'll be like 10 of them or 12 of them, and it's just small portions of like 10 or 12 different items, and you're just picking at them.
Yeah.
And so it's very different style though, and so really, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, and then the Indian street food, bro. We're not about to even talk about that shit.
Tell me at least one thing so I can
street
go
food,
seek it
I'm
out.
gonna tell
Where
you.
can you find it?
Huh?
Where can you find
They
it?
know a
have an
couple.
Indian buffet, like kind of off North Beach.
Nah, y'all have me now. Don't go nowhere before you talk to me. Like, please, don't waste your money or your time. But there's this one spot. So it's in Irving. Most of the spots are over in Irving and Las Colinas and stuff. The good ones, at least. And it's predominantly just a snack place. So it's called Thaj Chaat House. Chaat is a style of like a type of like street food mixture. And they're like kind of like these, put it this way, almost like, this is a terrible comparison, but like think about like tapas or something like that, or like small little items that are like light fare, but they're snacky like. That would kind of be like chaat, but it lives in a certain category. So it's not an exact comparison, but you get what I'm saying. And so one of them that's my favorite street food in the world because it's very like, it makes you feel like a kid again. It's because you get to build a bite. And so it's like, and so what you build a bite. And so how it works is they're these puffed little pastries, like not pastries, I'm sorry, but like puffed little breads. So it's like a big oval, like a circle. It's literally like a little sphere, a ball, and it's just crispy, like it's a bread, fried bread. And you poke a hole in it at the top. And then you fill it with all the little items. There'll be like potatoes, lentils, some other items and stuff like that. You fill it up, and then you pour this pani. So it's called pani, which is water, and then puri, which is that little puff thing. And so then you pour this pani water, but it's spiced water. They season the water, and it's like almost like dark green looking. And you pour the water in there, and you eat it all like a shot. You have to eat it in one bite.
Dang, that sounds delicious.
It's phenomenal. And so it's one of the most fun things because you be on the streets or something, right? You got cows on the streets, you got dogs in that, you got people on rickshaws and bikes and crazy. You know our countries, bro. They be turned. And so it's like, they be turned. And so you're in the street or something, and it's like, hey, they're like, trying to tell you to pull up. And they have this big old vessel with the pani, and they just like whipping it up. And then you just get to, and then you're like, and it's so fun. Like you feel like a kid again. So that's what I would recommend, and that's the place I would recommend. But and that's just one of the snacks, and then I could go on. So I'm a snack person, man.
Have you been to India?
Been twice. Unfortunately, it's only been on like circumstance for like grandparents' health and stuff. Because traveling across the world's not cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like I went when I was like 4 or 5, and then I went again when I was 16. Both, like one when my grandma was gonna pass and one when my grandfather was gonna pass. So I've never had a chance to really explore my country. But trajectory-wise, LA this year. Next year we're taking all the companies to New York, and then 2025 I'm going to India, and so we're gonna take it global. And so when I go there, then I'm planning on like just actually getting to travel, because I've only gotten to stay in the South. I've never really got to go to other states, and because it's cool. Because if you go to South India, bro, people literally look a certain way, dress a certain way, eat certain foods. You go to East, West, or North, they literally like you'll think you're in a different country. Like it's crazy. Like it'll drastically differ that much. Like for example, my mother, bro, beautiful, and she's whiter than you, and she has green, gray, and orange eyes. And you would never think she's an Indian woman. And then my dad, he's darker than a black man. And so it's like, that's why I always joke. I say I came out brown. But so it's interesting, like our cultures of like, as many countries have dealt with obviously a lot of stuff historically. But like we've been enslaved obviously by the Ottoman Empire, Turkish Empire, British Empire, etc. over courses of time. So a lot of like exchange happened obviously, right? Like, relationally and culturally and stuff. So like the Turkish Empire brought a lot of exquisite like craft art to our country and stuff like that during that time and whatnot. They brought a lot of stringed instruments, and where you got things like the sitar and stuff like that.
It's interesting.
So like with the companies you've founded or worked for, Has there been like one story that you felt like so inspired from that you changed someone's life? Like, is there anything that you felt like that so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so. I think when we launched, when we launched Nerve, that was November 5th of this last year. So we're not only but like 4 months and some change old. There's people crying at the event. There's multiple people crying, and I'm over here like, whoa, what's going on right now? like this is a little weird for me. Because when I'm on stage and I'm telling my story, as you could tell earlier, like I kind of choked up a little, like with, you know, when I'm talking about my boys like Duke, Noah, and Jet, and you know they're important people to me, and like as I don't go out of my way to tell it often, but like those are just 3 of the homies. Me myself personally, I've almost lost over 50 friends already in life, and I'm fairly young, I'd like to think. And so for somebody to have lost personally nearly 50 people, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. And that's just those friends in that category. I'm not going to ever get into on my personal life and the things I've seen and gone through, but like I've seen a lot of other things in life through, you know, unfortunately making a lot of crazy decisions in my childhood, and what have you. But so I would say Nerve has. I can confidently say Holistic has. Holistic got launched May 8th, 21. And that's, you know, what we do with Holistic is like, actually for tomorrow, yeah, that's Friday, I have to run a 5K tomorrow morning. And so, yeah, I got to run a 5K. So the last day of every single month, Holistic will host a virtual 5K. And the reason why is, think about it this way. We came up with this concept because people make New Year's resolutions, and like, 100% people fail. And
don't even start it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so 100% people...
2 weeks and they're done.
If that. And, you know, 100% of people fail. Typically, it's because you got to think about it, bro. Like, you're going to spend a week or two thinking about how you're going to set up the rest of your year.
Yeah.
You know
I stopped making those.
It's terrible. Like, you're going to spend a week or two to decide how you're going to spend the rest of the year. And then, obviously, it's intimidating, so you fail. So our concept is like microdosing. Like, I love microdosing. And so I'm like, how can you microdose habits, right? And so I was like, oh, how can we give people a mental restart? Instead of once a year, how can we do it a slightly more frequently, and then eventually zoom further in, and then zoom further in to the next thing you know, they won't even realize, but by being involved with our company, they've developed better habits, right? And so the idea is, if you start a 5K on the last day of every single month, what's the next day after the last day of a month? The first of the next.
You got to pay that rent.
Yeah, the first of the next one. And so how many people do 5Ks? On average, people that do 5Ks, it's like 37% or 40 some change percent of society. So if you do that, bro, you're literally in a brand new category. Like, you're immediately like launched into a different tiny category of the human species. Right. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And a 5K is relatively easy, and we do, you know, it's a run or a walk. So it's like, pick one, but get it the fuck done. You know, I don't want to hear it. Get it done.
What does that translate to in
3.1 miles? And
okay,
so,
that's what I was asking.
And that's not that bad. Like, it's like, whoa, but the point is, it's just bad enough.
Yeah.
That you do 3.1 miles, we're like, damn, I just
thing.
did that, bro.
Yeah,
like,
I do 2 miles whenever I go to the gym. Like, I do it on the elliptical thingy. I do it
and
like
you're
the
above
upstairs, the resistance.
It's like 60-something% of America can't run a mile. 60-something% of America can't run a mile.
That's
And when I say run, I mean that's at a pace of like
the jogging.
Yeah, of like a 20-something. I think it is terrible statistics. And so,
yeah,
you know, like terrible. And so I'm like, if you do that 5K and you get it done, when you sleep that night and wake up the next morning, how the fuck you gonna feel?
Proud.
You gonna feel like you a boss because
Yeah.
you are. And you get to do that every single month. You get to start over again. What if you had just a bad month? Get the 5K done, wake up that next morning and be like, at least I did that. At least I'm getting it. And you get 12 restarts every year now. Not one restart, you get 12. You get 12 opportunities to restart. And then the goal is, we're working on eventually, like, how can you zoom further in, where we're going to do something bi-weekly, and then eventually weekly. And then next thing you know, we taught you how to redesign your own habits without ever having to say it. I said it here, but like, we never
Everyone ignore that part.
Right? You know, we don't ever publicize it that way, but like, that's the idea, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's retraining your framework. And so we've changed people's lives there. You know, people are like, I had one woman when we launched at the Cowtown Marathon, May 8th, 2021. And cool thing was just to show y'all, not for the sake, I'm proud of it, I don't need to tell y'all, but for the sake of people understanding how to be proud of yourselves, is like, we put our intention. I joked with my team, and I was like, hey, because we entered as a corporate team, we had 35 participants or something like that, and we entered with our corporate team, and I joked with my team, I was like, I want to win the whole goddamn race. I want to win the whole race. And they're like, yeah, for sure. And I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, look at me, I'm not playing with you, I want to win this thing. And then they're like, okay. And I have my friends that are athletes as well, collegiate level athletes at one time and all that. And I was like, look, I need y'all to go crazy. And so then, sure enough, I get a call like weeks later afterwards, and she's like, hey, it's blah, 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 the race director at the Cowtown. I was like, okay, like, what did I do wrong? And I was like, did I screw something up? Like, what did I do? And she's like, hey, yeah, y'all came first place as the #1 corporate team. And that was our launch event. That was our first day. Like, and when I get to
not
say,
even really trying.
yeah, and I was telling people, I was like, I want to put it in a song, but I was like talking about holistic, and I was like, hey, look, like, we literally hit the ground running. Like, like, we literally hit the ground running. And so, like, I was joking with them, and I was flushed because I was like, y'all, I actually was just kidding with y'all. Like, I was just being an asshole. I didn't think we beat Lockheed Martin, we beat Baylor Medical, we beat BNSF, and these are big organizations that. And these people tend to be in those cultures, right? Runners and this
they're
and
like,
that.
you're the runner for this
exactly.
year.
And I was like, and I got to see, when I saw that, like, and I was like, holistic health, #1, and all these companies beneath, I was like, see, this is what happens when you set yourself up for being intentional. You know what I'm saying? So, like, with holistic, I think we have, because during that race, I walked with one of the girls that was like, she just was having a mental breakdown. She's like, I can't do this. And so I stopped running, and I literally walked with her to the end. And I think she has like probably 4 or 5 kids or something of that sort, and like she literally is just bawling at the finish line with me, and I was like, what's going on? Because, like, you know, being an athlete, like, we have different lens, right? Yeah. So I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I've literally never done this in my life. And like, I never thought I would do something like this. Like, I dread to even drive 3 miles in my life. I never thought I would like move my body that much of distance. You changed
her life.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God.
You helped her change her life.
It's a bookmark, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not the book. You get to write that. And so, if you can serve as a bookmark for anybody, that's enough, you know? I'm not ever going to write nobody's story, but, so I would say that. And then with Age, you know, Age is the youngest of my companies, the record label, and so, like, I would like to think, because even though it's just legally young, but, like, I've been working with the artists I've worked with for quite some time, and it's music, so I think it's pretty easy to say that you're changing people's lives, because it's, you know, you're expressing the deepest of your deep thoughts, right? Like, you know, I mean, shout out to some of the highest musicians in Fort Worth, right? We got North, I mean, we got Eric, got Dank 817, like, amazing, you know, Nino So Supreme, Leon, got to kick it with Leon in LA, shout out to my boy. And, you know, we got some amazing people here, y'all.
We really do.
We have some amazing people. And so, like, I think it's amazing, you know, the types of, you know, the platform you guys are building and the platform you're providing for people to be able to express their stories, because we haven't had the opportunity as a city to have as much, like, big picture coverage. But it takes, like, leaders like ourselves that are built, like, you know what, if they're not going to do it, then we'll do it ourselves.
Yeah. It's the passion and the love for the art
Honey.
That's how we got to this, is because we just love music. We're passionate about it. We love I love listening to music all the time. Like I told you earlier, like, music has changed my life. It's helped me get away from those stressful situations, like just plug in the headphones and I'm done. But also, I think there's a lot of people that make music because they're trying to get away from something too. Yeah. And I feel like they need to be heard because they're very passionate about their music and they make some good ass shit. Like, some music I'll be listening to, I'm just like, yes. Yeah. Like, especially with North, like, I love him so and Pretty hard. Them, like, their music. I can just, like, listen to their album and just be like, this the whole time. Like, yes, they make some great music. Phenomenal and there's artists. Not just them, but there's like all kinds of other people in Fort Worth, even that we've had on this show, Fort Worth, Dallas people, and some great stuff comes out of these cities. Yeah, they need to be heard.
No, absolutely. And I think the cool part is we're finally in that era where people are building their own avenues and everybody also has their own personalities, so it's like, you know, I think that's the key.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess we're about to finish this up.
Yeah.
Did you have... Well, actually, I did have one more question for you.
I got it.
What events do you have coming up?
Yeah, sure. So briefly with that, I mean, we got an event tomorrow. We just came up with this event with Nerve. We're partnering with Art of Living Fort Worth. They're an amazing organization there in Lancaster where all the homeless community is. All the shelters and things of that sort. So we're partnering with them. We're working on a few things behind the scenes, so I'll obviously keep you guys up to date as that develops. But this event, it's called Social Solutions. It's an open table discussion, community discussion, where we're getting people together to discuss how to reduce homelessness in DFW. So that's tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. We got a little Eventbrite link. It's totally free, food, drinks, all that, that's on us. And then Saturday, they have a program where they work with the homeless children from the Presbyterian Night Shelter. And so we usually go out there and we'll volunteer. And that one's just pretty simple. You just get to go and chaperone some badass fucking kids. They're phenomenal, brilliant children. And it's about putting them in position so that they can continue to doing the type of work that we do, but they're just going to be far more powerful. And so that's one of those events. And then quarterly, as I mentioned, so every quarter. And then besides that, we've got some things in the works, but we're keeping it slightly under wraps. But I mean, later in the year, November 4th, that's a Saturday. It's going to be our 1-year anniversary for Nerve.
Oh, dang.
And it's going to be a gala like it was last year. It's at a winery. I know some of the owners at 199 Winery. Some of the best wine I think I've ever had in my life. And so it's a bougie event. Everybody gets, you get to come cute in your cocktail dresses. You get to come dapper in your suits or your tuxedos.
Extra fancy.
Very. And so, I'm a bourgeois person to some degree, but, we like to keep it street when necessary. And
same here.
Absolutely. And so that, and then really the only other thing is these are way down the road, but my birthday's on New Year's, so usually we do a show with Age where we get local artists and, get them to perform or whatever, and then I'll usually sometimes perform and say some stuff
Rock
on the mic.
Yeah. Well, we'll be looking out for those, but I guess this is the end of tonight, sadly. We're about to close out. And did you have any other questions at all?
You can do a rapid round. I'll answer them.
Wrap around. What's your favorite concert you've been to?
Concert, Mac Miller. Mac Miller at Warehouse Live, Houston. I got to see him before anybody. Early. One of the most beautiful souls I think I've ever experienced. Logic as well at Warehouse Live for the Under Pressure tour.
Everyone loves Logic. That's
Yeah,
come on
I know.
so far.
Phenomenal artist. But Mac Miller is arguably one of the greatest performers I think I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, same,
for sure.
Same.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I have a rapid.
Hey, you said rapid, man. I'm moving.
I have one.
I'm moving.
So, what advice could you offer to anyone that's struggling with depression?
Ooh.
Yeah, I would say the main thing I would say is for people, because there is a fine line, for people that do have friendship, immediately go to friends. Okay. Don't look nowhere else. Go to your friends. Stop what you're doing, go to your friends. And if you don't, because there are people that really like that, and I don't like the narrative and when people say, oh, stop being a sad, you don't have friends or whatever. There are actual people that don't, and I know people like that. They genuinely don't have friends like that. And so if you don't, write it down. You have to find a way to face yourself. So, and I used to do, literally, a lot of actors do this, athletes do this, and I used to do this myself. I do it till today. I literally stare in the mirror and I have full-blown conversations with myself. Sometimes they'll be 45 minutes. I will literally talk to myself in the mirror, because if you can't look yourself in the eye and you get uncomfortable, then you're always going to be uncomfortable doing that with anybody else.
Yeah. And
so if you can't do that, well, that's awkward. I'm like, well, then that means you're not tough enough yet.
That means you're scared of yourself.
Yeah, that means you're not tough enough yet.
I've said that in a past podcast. I'm like, sometimes you just have to talk to yourself, because nobody knows your problems more than you do. Exactly. And I kind of got laughed at a bit, but I'm like, I still stand by that every single day.
Yeah. And if it's not a visual thing, part of reflection can be written. So that's what I'm saying. Then just write it out, and then just read on it later. And then you'll realize, you'll pick up on trends. Once you start writing enough, you'll be like, why do I keep saying this?
Why
clearly
do I
that's
feel
a
like
problem.
that all the time?
Exactly.
Nice.
All right. Well, I guess that's all.
That's it.
I appreciate y'all.
I feel like we. No.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. And good night, America. Thank you for listening.
The juice.
The juice.
The juice.